the latest information on the shooting at competing political protests over the weekend, what we know about the man who was killed, as well as the security guard that 9 News management says was working for a company contracted by the station. That man's being held on suspicion of murder charges. Denver's COVID-19 case rate numbers return to the highs only seen once before in the pandemic. Let's talk about caution, not panic. We begin our Let's Just Vote project. Grab your ballot. No, I'm serious. Go get it. We're going to start with the pros and cons of a tax hike for some. And your generosity astounds again. You came through for domestic violence survivors as your word of thanks donations passed the $900,000 mark. You're making a difference for good, because this is next. We begin, and we will spend extended time tonight sharing what we've learned about a shooting death at dueling political rallies in Denver over the weekend. A security guard working for a company under contract with 9 News is currently being held on suspicion of murder charges. He's 30-year-old Matthew Doloff. He's held on suspicion of first-degree murder for that shooting on Saturday that killed a man named Lee Keltner. Keltner had been at what was described as a patriot muster. Doloff was working for the security company Pinkerton, which 9 News contracted with to provide security for one of our reporting crews at the rallies. There's no record of Doloff having the license needed to work as a security guard in the city of Denver. 9 News management released a statement this evening. I will read it for you here. 9 News continues to cooperate fully with law enforcement and is deeply saddened by this loss of life. For the past few months, it's been the practice of 9 News to contract private security through an outside firm to accompany our personnel covering protests. Pinkerton, the private security firm, is responsible for ensuring its guards or those it contracts with are appropriately licensed. 9 News does not contract directly with individual security personnel. Again, that was a statement sent from 9 News management to the journalists in the 9 News newsroom. We're going to have more on Doloff in a few minutes. Today, the coroner officially released the name of the man Doloff is accused of shooting, 49-year-old Lee Keltner. Understand that you're going to have some fair questions about how we will go about covering a story that involves 9 News. So here's one thing. We've brought in crews from sister stations outside the state, so you're going to see some new names and faces covering this situation. AJ Legault from our sister station CARE in Minneapolis has been gathering information about Lee Keltner, a businessman, a veteran, an artist with a passion for creating hats.
Before the memorial marking the site.
Touch me, old man!
Before the viral videos of Lee Keltner's last moments as dueling protests wrapped up. Before the pictures of mace and a bullet being fired, Lee Keltner talked about his passion.
We're keeping the West alive, one head at a time.
That's Keltner in a 2012 video posted on YouTube. In 2015, the Hatter with a shop in Brighton, Colorado, was profiled by the Denver Post and told them everything he did was custom. I do one hat at a time, he said. He was also part of Colorado's motorcycle community. The Biker Down charity has started a fundraiser for his family, describing him as a husband, father, and friend to many.
I love being an artist and creating new and different things because I do all the work myself.
I've reached out to the Keltner family seeking to learn more about Lee. They're obviously dealing with the unimaginable, and so far I have not heard back. In Denver, I'm AJ Legault. Back to you.
An attorney for the security guard's family told us a short time ago this evening that they believe that Matthew Doloff was acting in self-defense. They say that Doloff was there that day to do a job and was not there for political purposes. Here's Jason Wiley, who's on assignment here in Denver from our sister station in Dallas.
For the first time since this happened on Saturday, we are now hearing from an attorney representing the family of that security guard, Matthew Doloff. We spoke with Doug Richards on the phone within the last half hour or so. And on behalf of Doloff's family, here's what Richards told us. He said that Matt was acting in self-defense. Matt put his life and now his liberty in between the now deceased and the 9 News employee. This was not a political assignment for Matt, Doug Richards said. This was simply Matt protecting your employee. Police and prosecutors kept quiet today, publicly at least, on this case. But the mayor and the city attorney's office did have something to say. When asked what the city might do to Matthew Doloff for working as a security guard without a license, Here's what Mayor Michael Hancock said.
And so while this is still under investigation, we do plan to pursue fully the scope of our legal power within the situation. But we'll allow the investigation to go forward.
But within the last couple of hours, the city attorney's office went further, emailing us this statement saying, quote, regarding Matthew Doloff, there could be civil or criminal actions taken or both against Mr. Doloff, Pinkerton, 9 News, and or any other entity that hired and deployed Doloff in an unlicensed security guard capacity. 9 News contracted with Pinkerton to get a security guard for its journalists covering protests on Saturday. But that Pinkerton-referred security guard, Matthew Doloff, he shot and killed a Patriot demonstrator named Lee Keltner after a brief encounter. Pinkerton tweeted another statement this afternoon saying in part, quote, our hearts go out to those impacted by this situation. Pinkerton again said that Doloff is not a staff employee, explaining today that it contracted Doloff through a long-standing industry vendor. Okay, but what company is that industry vendor? Well, we've asked multiple times and Pinkerton has not told us. We also learned that Doloff did have a concealed carry permit in the state of Colorado. It was issued in Elbert County back in June of 2018. It's a 5-year permit. It was still in good standing. But Sheriff Tim Norton told us that he suspended Doloff's license as this whole investigation plays out. For Next, I'm Jason Whiteley.
A personal word now. We mentioned that 9 News management released a statement saying that 9 News is deeply saddened by this loss of life. I think that a lot of Coloradans share that feeling. We have talked here about the simmering conflicts downtown, and you have shared the hope that we share that everyone would go home safe and that situations would not escalate. Coloradans disagree on a lot of things, is what I told you back on September 1st, yet I don't think that most people want to see that escalation in our streets. Could not imagine a month later that we are in the situation we are in today, with a security guard working for a company under contract with 9 News being held on suspicion of murder. I wish that I could answer all of your fair questions about what happened. The bottom line is that all of us who were not there, we've seen the same images. So now we await law enforcement's determination. Would mention also that 9 News management has publicly pledged full cooperation with that investigation. So here we return. Coloradans disagree on a lot of things, but we are all deeply saddened by the death of Lee Keltner. And we're thinking about his family and keeping them in our prayers. Denver Mayor Michael Hancock today issued a warning to people in the city as COVID cases continue to climb here. Says our 7-day average in case rates is now back where we were at the height of the pandemic in May. He talked about coming restrictions if this keeps up. There's your look at Colorado's case number, hospitalization numbers as a whole, and they are inching up as well. 288 people currently in the hospital with COVID-19. We look at positivity as well. Higher numbers suggest more uncounted cases lurking out there, and our positivity rate is 4.89%. That is dangerously close to that 5% threshold. That's where public health experts start to get real concerned. Our weekly average is almost 4.1%. Bottom line, Colorado's got a worsening pandemic situation right now, so we will continue to track it each day. You're going to do it. You're going to raise $1 million for Colorado's small to mid-sized nonprofits that are struggling during the pandemic. We have the total that you brought together to rescue domestic violence survivors from abusive situations. And a community finds unity in remembrance.
We've had a lot of members from the community come to our house and use our altars.
We'll take you to the Ofrenda in Harvey Park to hear those family stories. Next. We don't have to agree about politics, but let's just vote. Everybody votes this year, all right? So you either have your ballot or it's coming to you soon. So as promised, we're beginning our nightly series where we are going to go through each statewide ballot issue and the Senate races. And then once we go on top to bottom on that ballot, we are going to fold them up. We are going to sign the envelopes as needed, make sure everything's legit, and we'll pick a day and we're all going to go drop them in a ballot box. Not the same ballot box. Tonight, politics guy Marshall Zellinger dives into the ballot, starting with a tax hike that only applies to some people. It's Proposition EE.
It's the ballot issue shouting at you in all caps. but that's required by state law because it's a question about a new tax. Proposition EE. A yes vote increases taxes on cigarettes and tobacco and creates a new tax on nicotine, including vaping products. A no vote keeps the tax the same as it is today, including no tax on vaping products. Proposition EE was put on the ballot by state lawmakers. Because it would raise taxes, state law requires voters to have the final say. The proposition increases cigarette and tobacco taxes over time. Today, cigarettes are taxed at 84 cents per pack. A yes vote makes that $1.94 per pack starting in January for 3 years. $2.24 for the next 3 years, $2.64 in 2027. Also starting next year, the minimum price for a pack of cigarettes after tax would be $7. Chewing tobacco, cigars, and snuff are taxed at 40% of the manufacturer's price. A yes vote makes that 50% for 3 years, then 56%, and in 2027, 62%. Nicotine and vape products right now have no tax. A yes vote makes that 30% next year, 35% in 2022, 50% in 23, and then it follows the tobacco rates. A no vote keeps today's taxes in place. So if EE were to pass, where would the new tax money go? Depends on the year. For the first 3 years through June 2023, rural schools, K through 12, affordable housing and eviction assistance, as well as tobacco education and general state spending. After July 2023, preschool programs and healthcare would start getting money. Because it's a proposition, future lawmakers could always change how the money is spent. The No on EE campaign has popped up with billboards. The billboards mention a tax hike, but nowhere does it say cigarettes, tobacco, or nicotine. The group behind the campaign is called A Bad Deal for Colorado. The group has received more than $3 million from Liggett Victor Brands, a tobacco company in North Carolina, and $100,000 from Excalibur, a cigarette and tobacco company in Oklahoma. Smoker Friendly in Boulder has also contributed. One of the Yes groups, A Brighter, Healthier Future for Kids, has received more than $3.5 million. $1 million from the Gary Community Investment Company, $460,000 from Education Reform Advocacy out of New York, and $50,000 from Boldly Forward Colorado, which used to be the committee created by Jared Polis to transition from the November 2018 election to his swearing in as governor.
Now is the time when you take your ballot, and this is a sample ballot. There's nothing on here that could be used or screenshot. It's fake ballot that I'm holding that Denver provided to me for demonstration purposes. You grab the Proposition EE part of your ballot, and now you fill in the yes or the no, Kyle.
Marshall, this measure came together fast.
Oh, yeah, this was part of that extra session when the legislature went back. It got introduced June 11th. Passed through one chamber in a day and ultimately passed in 4 days and then signed by the governor. It is rare that you get a bill that is passed in 4 days unless it's one of those last minute, we got to get this through at the very end. And clearly the legislature had a lot of time to think about this, but they rushed it through in 4 days.
And now it's up to everybody watching. Marshall, getting started with our ballot series. Thank you, sir. Tomorrow night, Next presents Race for the Senate. Live at 6 o'clock, in place of Next, Republican Senator Cory Gardner and his Democratic challenger, John Hickenlooper, will take the stage for a 1-hour commercial-free debate. It'll air from 6 to 7 on 9 News. Marshall and I will moderate, and it will be broadcast statewide. Hey, I want to take a moment to personally thank you for your generous support of Safe House Denver since last week. So, they run the area's 24/7 domestic violence crisis line, as well as an emergency shelter for people escaping violent situations. We featured them in our Word of Thanks microgiving campaign last Wednesday, particularly because Safe House Denver's losing out on $42,000 in victims' assistance court fees this year. I'm thrilled to tell you that Next viewers have raised nearly $35,000 to cover that gap. Your generous donations are going to protect the 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men who will face domestic violence in their lifetime. You have now raised more than $900,000 for Colorado's nonprofits through Word of Thanks since June. So together, we're on to $1 million next. He knows he's not alone.
I know I'm not the only one that's struggling during COVID, and this would be just an awesome way to reach out to people that may need help like I did.
So he's offering his neighbors a place to celebrate loved ones lost. That's next.
sunshine today, blue skies and less wind. We'll take it. The storm that brought the rain and snow to the mountains yesterday is long gone. Temperatures seasonal in the mid-70s along the Front Range, but we go warmer tomorrow. And with the wind and with the lack of moisture around the area, the potential for red flag warnings to be posted again as our storm system races off to the east, and we've got very little chance to see any rain around the area this week. The snow, well, we're hoping for a little in the high country, but at least the smoke is giving us a little bit of a break with this pattern. Fair skies and 42 tonight. Tomorrow, sunshine and 78. A warm weather trend for 48 hours, and then a cold front comes in. 56 Thursday with lows in the mid-30s. Back to sunshine and 70s by the time we hit next weekend.
So Halloween's going to be different this year because we wear masks every day now. Dia de los Muertos is also changed in 2020. A Denverite's tribute to his father and grandmother has turned into a way for the whole Harvey Park neighborhood to connect, coming up on the Day of the Dead.
My name is Paul Stevens. I created this ofrenda in honor of my father and my grandma that I lost in July. And it was so special that I thought I would share it with my community, my friends and family, who also have a story to tell. During the last few months, I quit my job. I had a lot of life-changing experiences, and but I was pretty much at rock bottom. Making this ofrenda is something that, has brought me kind of out of that funk. It's brought me a lot of peace, especially with my dad. And when I set it up and sent out the message to the community, I thought to myself, I know I'm not the only one in this position. I know I'm not the only one that's struggling during COVID. And this would be just an awesome way to reach out to people that, may need help like I did. When I first started, I only had 3 pictures. My dad, my Aunt Mary, who I lost, and a picture of my grandma. And since then, it's grown to almost 100 people on this ofrenda. Not only are my family members and my partner's family members on there, but we have several other family members of the community. It's really cool when they come at night and put their pictures up, and you kind of get to hear the story of whoever they're putting up. I'm really glad that it's gotten the response that it has from the community, because that in itself makes me feel so good.
What a beautiful gesture. Final word is your feedback next. Craig Kiefner writes in tonight to say thank you for listing the backers on EE as we went through the ballot measures. Craig, we're going to try to do that as many times as we can because you should know who's putting up big money trying to convince you to vote for or against something. Maggie says, I stuck my I voted sticker on my mask. I love that. What a great reminder. See you next time.